On this super review, let's take a look at the Auglamour F300. Now, I probably said that name incorrectly. Auglamour, something like that. It's got the word glamour in it, and I don't think that's an accident, because if you've seen pictures of this earphone, well, it's a very stylish looking earphone, and they're going for, I don't know, I actually kind of appreciate what this company is doing. All right, let me step back a little bit. What we have here is an in-ear monitor from a company, Auglamour, which I haven't seen or heard anything else from. And it costs around 35 bucks. Now there's a lot of IEMs in this price range, and what stood out to me about this one from Auglamour is the aesthetic choices that they're making. I think that the shells and the cable, at least in pictures, look really nice, but more than just being like nicely shaped and seem to be nicely made, they actually use some really interesting colors. They basically go with like pastels, which you almost is unheard of in the IEM game. So I'm interested to see, are the Auglamours, however you want to say it, are these things all show, or do they actually sound pretty good? Let's go and open them up and find out. That was a pretty decent spin, and just as sort of like a behind the scenes thing, that was my second attempt. Sometimes it takes me way more attempts to get a good spin. All right, we can do a quick tour of this box to find out what we can about this headphone before we open it up. What I do know about it from looking online is that it has a removable cable with a 2-pin connector. It seems to be a single dynamic driver headphone, which is neither a good thing nor a bad thing. It's just something to note about it. This is definitely one of the most colorful boxes we've had here in the channel. And like I mentioned during the intro, these things come in some pretty interesting colors. So you can see here they come in kind of like a pastel blue, a canary yellow. I guess it's like a forest green. I don't remember seeing that one. Or you can also get them in a very pastel pink. I think it's cool that these things come in these colors. I opted for the yellow just because I thought that, well, I don't have any yellow IEMs, and I thought it looked kind of cool. All right, looking down here at the specs, we know it's got a 3.5 millimeter connector, 16 ohm impedance, and a sensitivity of 102 decibels over MW. BMW? No, just MW. Apart from that, we're not going to find out much here from the box, so let's go ahead and crack it open and find out what's inside. Oh, that smells like a freaking shoe. All right, so we got the Auglamour F300 completely in box, and for 35 bucks, this is a pretty appealing little package. So let's start off with, yeah, you get some instructions. Those don't matter. Literally right out the box. A lot of the accessories come packaged in this little carrying case, and this little carrying case is kind of nice. Like, I can't tell if it's actually made of leather, but it smells basically the exact same as a leather shoe when it's new. That is one of the nicer looking cases I've ever seen with an IEM, let alone one for 35 bucks, but I'm pretty excited about that. But yeah, inside this case you had these little hook covers, which I'm not sure why you need these things, because the hooks and the cable are already preformed, but I guess maybe for extra padding. I've never been a fan of anything like that, so if you're into these things, let me know what you use them for. You do also get a hair clip, and again, I've never been a fan of these things, but I do have pretty short hair. And the F300 does come with 4 sets of ear tips, and they're pretty attractive looking tips, and worth calling out, these things appear to be pretty wide bore. The cable that these things come with is surprisingly nice. Looks like we've got kind of a little basic wind. Yeah, it's not quite braided, but that's a nice tight wind on a cable that has, you know, it's lying flat, it's not holding its shape. This is pretty much ideal. And then again, to have this in such an inexpensive headphone is pretty nice. And that brings us up here to the buds, which are, I'm actually surprised, these things are made out of metal. Can you hear that? That said, while these things are made of metal, I would actually say that the buds are kind of the cheapest feeling part here. I don't know, it looks like it's a painted metal, and maybe it's too early for me to be saying this, but I kind of expect the paint to chip off of these things. I don't know why, it's just, I don't know. You hear that? It kind of reminds me of like old school metal toys. That's interesting, but what's gonna be more interesting is, do these things actually sound any good? Because if you get all this for $35 and these things actually sound decent, that's kind of that's a pretty compelling package. So I'm gonna go ahead and bring in my Walkman, listen to my reference library of music, some De La Soul, some Erasure, some Alice in Chains, and I'll compare these to other $30 to $40 IEMs, and I'll come back and I'll let you know, what do I think? All right, squad, let's talk about the Auglamour F300, which I've been listening to for a little bit. And we can start by talking about the build and the general package, because I think that that is kind of the main selling point of this headphone. If you look at pictures of this thing on Amazon, for $35, what you're getting is pretty impressive. I mean, you get these buds, which they look very unique just because they're packing these, or they're rocking these really unique colors. I really appreciate that they've done something different with the coloring here, and I wouldn't mind seeing more headphones use colors like this, some pastels, some lighter colors, something a little fun. So for that, I'll give them credit. I think also probably the best part of this package is this cable that it comes with, which is just, you know, I haven't seen any headphone under $50 that comes with a cable quite this nice. It's got a nice drape to it, it doesn't get tangled, it doesn't hold its memory or anything like that, and it's got nice pre-curved hooks at the top. And to top off the package, they come with a really nice carrying case, which I think it looks really attractive, but it's also, you know, very functional. It's simple, it's definitely not an expensive piece, but it contributes to the overall package, and I think it really underscores how good of a value the Auglamour F300 is. In terms of fit and comfort, these things I think are great. Again, I like the cable a lot and the memory hook, which contributes to a comfortable fit. But the buds just generally, they're a nice size and a nice shape. They plug into my ears. They don't take up a lot of space. They're comfortable, they're secure. Overall, I like it. My only real complaint with the build of this headset is the fact that the shells are a painted metal. And I don't know, it just makes it, I feel like they would actually be a little bit nicer if they were just a yellow plastic. Maybe that's a controversial statement, I don't know, but this painted metal just kind of reminds me of like old metal toys from like the 20s. Unfortunately, as much as I like the package of the F300, I don't really like the way that these things sound. If I were to describe the general sound signature, just sort of set the landscape, I would say it's a consumer-friendly sound with an elevated bass, a little emphasis on the upper mid-range, and a very tame treble that's not going to be offensive to anybody. And I think that's what this thing does, which that probably sounds good to a lot of people. And in fact, that sounds good to me. I think that's a one way that you could describe something like the Moondrop Crescent. But I think the Moondrop Crescent, at basically the same price, just does it much, much better than the Auglamour. Here, I would say that the bass it's nice and punchy, and I wouldn't say it's overwhelming. Like, I don't think that they've overdone the bass, but it's a little sloppy and a little bit bleedy into the rest of the sound. With certain tracks, it can actually come across pretty good, but with other tracks where maybe there's not a lot of bass emphasis in the track, it feels a little muddy in my experience. I described the treble on these as relaxed and unoffensive, and that's totally true. I didn't really detect any sibilance or anything on here, and that's good, but generally I just think that the treble on these is really kind of boring and dull. There's not a lot of detail in the treble, and generally it's too relaxed for my tastes. And then we get into the mid-range, which I mentioned it's got a little emphasis on the upper mid-range, which is generally what I like to hear. Unfortunately, I don't know, my guess is that it's rolling off a little bit sooner than I would like, because while the vocals, certain vocals can sound a little bit forward like I like them to, they have kind of a hollow characteristic to them that I just find it really unappealing and just generally unsatisfactory. You know, this headphone, it's got that bass, it's got no treble, and it's got these hollow sounding vocals that generally I don't find it very engaging to listen to. It's a little flat, really narrow sound stage. And I don't know, I think for 35 bucks, there are much better options out there. If I were to rate the Auglamour F300 out of 5 stars, I think I'm gonna have to give these things 2 stars out of 5. I wish I could rate them better, because I think this package for $35 is really compelling. And if these things sounded any good, it would be kind of a nice recommendation, especially like a first starter in-ear monitor. Unfortunately, I don't think the sound is that appealing, at least not to me. It's not especially offensive. If all you want is bass and a kind of relaxing headphone that looks like this, you could definitely do worse. But if you're looking for something that's gonna be an engaging listen, I can't really recommend the F300. If you're interested in checking out the Auglamour F300, of course, I've got links in the description down below. While you're down there, you can hit the like button for the video if you liked it, you can subscribe to the channel, and then I'll see you on the next super review.